get some questions answered. Packers rookies and quarterbacks reporting yesterday. Harry, is Jordan Love set to become a top 10 quarterback in the league this year?
Without a doubt, Greeny. I love the way his last 12 games finished. That's including the playoffs, over 2,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions. I think in 2024, what a lot of people want to see more so this season is him do it for a duration of an entire season. Not the last 12 games, but the entire 17, including the playoffs. But Jordan Love is well on his way.
Bartholomew, a lot of people keeping an eye on the Houston Texans. What a jump they made last year. Their team reported yesterday, is C.J. Stroud the biggest threat to Patrick Mahomes in the AFC?
Negatory, Greeny. Listen, for me, I'm going to go with the brand, with the Blue Magic, right? A brand name. We can trust it. We can believe in it.
Magic.
And I'm going to believe in Patrick. I'm going to believe that anybody can beat Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, or Aaron Rodgers, because these are guys that I know in the face of that, they won't flinch. CJ doesn't know what he doesn't know right now, and he doesn't know what a tough burden that is to carry to go against Patrick Mahomes.
We'll find out. Let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. He reported along with the rookies yesterday. Hey, Kmart, can Mahomes pull off a three-peat in Super Bowl, something no one has ever done before?
One thing I'm not going to do is bet against Patrick Mahomes and his dad bod. Listen, every year the Chiefs find a way to reinvent themselves, and I think last year was the biggest test of all. I think no other AFC team besides the Bengals has shown that they can knock off the Chiefs in a playoff game, in an AFC championship game. So for me, I think the three-peat is possible.
Also reporting today, the Washington Commanders. There's the Heisman winner, Jaden Daniels. Bart, can he win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I think he can. I mean, you talk about the dual threat. You know, the big concern with him is how slight his build is. When you think about Louis Riddick and what he talked about, you know, what some of the scouts' concerns were, that he takes square physical hits. But you talk about probably the better of the two when you talk about dual threats. I think he's going to use his legs and his athleticism. We just hope that he can stay healthy for an entire year as they kind of balance out that roster in Washington.
Well, with a lot of the things that happened yesterday between Brandon Ayuk's trade demand and everything else, we did not get to dive into something that Booger McFarland said on the show earlier this week. He was talking about how we could be looking at something of a deja vu this year when we look at the top 2 rookie quarterbacks. This was Booger.
Don't be surprised if midway through the season we're having a conversation very similar to what we had last year, meaning the number 2 pick, Jaden Daniels, looks better than the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams. Just like we had last year with C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, because there are a lot of people out of Washington telling me that this young man, Jaden Daniels, not only does he look the part, his teammates know he looked the part. And I think Caleb Williams is going to struggle, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to come out the gate flying.
So that is a fascinating. I'm trying to gauge the expressions on people's faces. I'm looking over at you, Harold Douglas.
Harold.
What do you think?
I think the situations are kind of different. When I looked at Bryce Young last year, we were more so talking about his surroundings from a coaching standpoint.
Yes.
What Ryan Poles has been able to do with the number 1 overall pick, in which we would never see this ever again, a number 1 pick going to a situation like he is with the Chicago Bears. They have 3 number 1 wide receivers. They have 2 solid tight ends. They have DeAndre Swift. Offensive line has gotten better. Defense has gotten better. That defense made a 360 as soon as they traded for Montez Sweat the back half of the year. They added more pieces to that as well. I think when it comes to the Chicago Bears, the most important person for Caleb Williams is Shane Waldron, the offensive coordinator, and not allowing him to go out there game 1 and just throwing the football all over the place 40, 50 times. Having that run game, having that balance and that structure, and Caleb Williams has to do a phenomenal job of playing in structure, something that he did not do at the collegiate level. But I think the situations are a little bit more different because of the surroundings.
Yeah.
Bryce Young didn't have receivers. Bryce Young didn't have an O-line. And that offense was, I would say, atrocious in my opinion for Carolina. So I think Caleb Williams is in a better situation from the players that he's surrounded by.
Well, it's a reminder for those who don't remember. Carolina had to trade a bunch of things away, including one of those receivers you're talking about, to get that first pick. In this case, Chicago sort of got their cake and ate it too. You were there in Washington, however, when the Commanders drafted Jaden Daniels, and there were a lot of people on this show, on the draft the night I hosted it, and other things, who felt he was the better prospect to begin with.
And Washington feels good about the guy they have. He has been, I mean, just being in that building in Dan Quinn's office, talking to Adam Peters, the first-year GM, Jaden at this point has been everything they expected him to be and more, from just the leadership, not just with the guys, but in the building. He is mature. They feel like he's ready for the moment. Yes, we have questions about his build and how he'll stand up, but here's the thing with Jaden versus Caleb. I hope last year kind of lets us take a breath as far as trying to project what these guys can be, because it's not just the talent. We know these guys are talented. It really is everything around them. And for Caleb, his pro day, talking to scouts and execs, like what they wanted to see from Caleb was, hey, we know you can do all the fancy, flashy stuff. Can you do the boring, regular stuff, the like work within structure stuff? We know when the pocket collapses, you can go and create. But that's what he's going to need to show. I would just like to temper expectations a little bit for the Chicago Bears. I think he's a rookie quarterback. Both of these guys are rookies. This is a franchise that has not yet shown it can develop a quarterback the right way. A lot of people thought Matt Eberflus wouldn't survive this offseason. He wouldn't be the head coach. So let's give him some time. Next year, it's a talented roster, but we have high expectations, but give the kid a minute.
But it's a win-now roster as well. When you talk about, you're only going to have Keenan Allen for 1 year, and he's going to go on, and you hope Odunze is going to be able to make up the slack. I think this comes down to environments, right? And we talk about rookie quarterbacks, environment matters, right? You talk about, in Chicago, they have the better roster, of course, right? But we talk about winning a battle opposed to winning a war, because arguably this is probably the most talented team that Caleb Williams is going to have, because eventually these guys are going to want to get paid. They're going to start losing some of the talent. This is probably the worst team that Jaden Daniels is going to have. So you ask yourself, who do you trust more? Cliff Kingsbury developing a quarterback, or Matt Eberflus, who's coaching for his job? Because if this goes sideways early, it's going to be no room for error, because they're going to see we're not going to allow him to destroy 2 young quarterbacks. So Caleb Williams is going to have it easy, because he can rely on his talent on his team. So he's going to be able to probably have to play more disciplined, handing the ball off, leaning on his veterans, don't try to do too much. They're going to spoon feed him. Jaden Daniels is probably going to be set free early, because he's going to have to rely and do everything, because he's on probably a team that's less talented, and he's going to have to be able to rely on that athleticism. And that flash and that dual threat is always going to catch our eyes first.
When you started talking and mentioned Matt Eberflus, he's had several quarterbacks to this point. I think in Chicago, the pressure is high. Like they can't have a season where the rookie quarterback doesn't come off and start off hot and the team is losing. I think in Washington, you have a situation where we have reset the culture.
Right.
We are looking for the future. I think that is an easier situation to be in than in Chicago, where.
Listen, we have Bill Belichick hovering, right there. When you look at that great roster, we got Vrabel hovering, right? Dan Quinn is secure, so that's an environment where guys are coaching for their jobs. That's easier for the development of a young quarterback.
Well, I would say this: you look at Houston, and there's a guy, their offensive coordinator, Bobby Slug, who got a lot of interviews this cycle around. And if Houston is able to have success, and we see C.J. Stroud play at the level that he's able to play, and with their schedule, if he's able to get through it, we're talking about an MVP candidate, potentially. I can see a guy like Bobby Slowik going to be the head coach if things don't work out in Chicago, and working with a young Caleb Williams in that offensive system. I can see something like that happening, because he's an offensive-minded guy.
Yeah, Bills are not going to be missed two cycles. Him and Vrabel, they're too good of coaches. They're hovering.
I'm just talking from an offensive standpoint.
Gotcha.
Where you're talking about, the offense that's hot right now in the NFL. It's that Shanahan, it's that McVay, it's those guys, Matt LaFleur. And I'm talking about him being with a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud last year, and his growth from preseason to the regular season was tremendous, in my opinion. Because I remember us coming on here on Get Up and kind of, getting after the Houston Texans for not being able to protect C.J. Stroud in preseason, or the offensive coordinator. But the strides that he made as a play caller and making the playoffs in year one, getting to a second round, and having those interviews this time around, I could see Houston having success and him getting a job working with a young Caleb Williams.
Things don't always go. One is great and the other one is terrible. I mean, Andrew Luck and Robert Griffin III both had really good rookie years, but frequently one guy goes this way, Peyton Manning, the other guy goes this way. I'm starting with you. The most interesting thing about this entire training camp is what happens in the Pittsburgh quarterback room. Who do you believe should be their starter week one? Harry.
For me, it's Russell Wilson. We're talking about a guy who's been able to play and structure some part of his career, but also what Arthur Smith loves to do, run the football, use the play-action game, have everything come off that run game. I think that suits Russell Wilson and his skill set first. So I think Russell Wilson should be the guy to start the year when it comes to game one.
Bart, you agree with that?
To start, yes, but I think this is Justin Fields. I think he makes the Pittsburgh Steelers a much more dynamic offense, making you have to defend all 11 players. You talk about with him, Jalen Warren holding the backside linebacker, the RPO game. Play action is really what it's about. You remember with Tannehill what that was all about.
Then help me with this, okay? Because everyone keeps telling me this. Or let's start with Russell Wilson, but then eventually they get. What are we delaying the inevitable for? If they're better with Justin Fields on the field, if he has the potential to be their future and the other guy does not, I don't mean to be sitting here knocking Russell Wilson. That's not what this is about. But it is about you bring in a young, dynamic player like Justin Fields. Let him have the reps. Let him be ready to start the season.
The Steelers.
Steelers.
Well, the Steelers, have to do right. They're honorable franchise. They promised Russell Wilson something. Russell Wilson comes there. They're not paying him much money. They got to allow Russell Wilson to lose it. And Justin Fields, you want a young player to be hungry because Justin Fields is the future. They have to listen. Somebody in that management job is on the line. You say, well, what are you talking about, Bart? They never have a losing season. They've kind of stalled out and hit like that mediocre, playing. Like the Steelers can't really afford to fall behind in that division, which is probably the most competitive division in all of football. But the reality is somebody messed up with drafting Najee Harris. Somebody messed up by drafting Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's saving their job is they found their Brock Purdy potentially in Justin Fields, potentially being a future quarterback.
All the more reason, very quickly, because, you're closer to the situation than I am. I get it, and they're people of their word, and I have a lot of respect for Russell. It's very fashionable to dump on Russell Wilson. I'm not here to do that.
No.
I'm here to say.
Steelers yellow.
Exactly, so you're in the perfect position to comment on this today. It feels to me like everyone says to me, well, they'll start with Russell Wilson, but then eventually they'll get over to Justin Fields. I don't understand the thinking of that.
It's always easier to start with the vet and then go to the young.
Who's the better option? Who gives them the better chance to win? That's the option you start with. It doesn't make any difference.
Because here's the thing: you brought Russell in first. You told him, okay, this is the job. Then they went and got Justin Fields.
Because they didn't know they could get Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick. If they had known that, they would have done that first.
But here's the thing: they're not tied to either of these guys beyond this year. I think you got to give Russ some time. I think when you look at the upside, the potential of that Justin Fields has.
Yeah.
That's what excites me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that is what excites me. But I think you can. That's a difficult switch, starting from Justin and then ending with Russell.
But your hope is that you never do that.
I think
you hope that you put the quarterback out there. No one starts a season saying, well, we'll start with this guy, and then hopefully we'll work our way to a different quarterback.
Well, the reports are they got to kind of get Justin Fields up to speed. He doesn't throw with great anticipation. He doesn't throw with great accuracy. So you kind of work him in because, listen, he has to be the future. Because if they're not the future, I think they are tied to Justin Fields. Because if he's not the answer, then what is the answer? That means they got to go back and try and draft the guy or get one of these retreads, and they're going to fall, behind everybody within that division, and some jobs are going to be on the line eventually.
Think about how we've talked about Justin Fields' tenure in Chicago, about how that organization helped set him back.
Yeah,
really.
The opposite of helped, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, think about that. That's what you're getting. You got raw talent. You got raw clay to play with. But yeah, this is now another new system for a young kid who's been in a new system every single year.
I want to take it from there.
Yeah.
Because Arthur Smith is running that system. I was able to do the Bill Walsh diversity coaching internship. I know that offensive system. It takes time. So you can't just have Justin Fields come in and is going to be up to speed on everything within that system. There's little things when it comes to that offensive system, which is that Shanahan system that you have to be able to, be up to speed on.
But you can take the gray out. I mean, I believe that Justin Fields can be Lamar Jackson his first and second year when you consider what a dynamic runner he is, and with all the weapons they have on the outside, one of the best dual threat tight ends in Fairmouth, who's a great blocker and pass receiver. He can rush for 1,000 yards within this system, which makes them impossible to defend. And who cares if you beat the kid up because he's just a rental? You can get rid of him if he gets hurt.
Wait, but you think they should start with Russell? But you still think that?
I think one or two games just to say, Russell, this ain't it, right? Because what happens
just
is
to see.
within that division,
You ain't it, bro.
Pittsburgh, Their first few games, they can't afford to be playing around. Their last, 8 or 9 games, they played everyone in the division, and they played the Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. So they got to start correct.
You don't want Justin to wet his pants, though. You know what I mean? And ruin his contract.
Justin's not going to wet his pants. After all the stuff that guy has been through, I have to believe his pants are going to be dry.
He never been in this division.
In fairness to Russ,
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say it that way. Go ahead.
In fairness to the Steelers and all that. Every year I cover this team, we've talked about how they haven't had good, consistent quarterback play in several years.
They've had the worst.
And were they in the playoffs last year?
Yeah.
With all those different quarterbacks?
Yeah, but that's because Joe Burrow got hurt. If Joe Burrow didn't get hurt, they don't make that slot.